guest of the week, Duke head coach Marissa Young. Marissa, thank you so much for joining me this week on the Softball America podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So we'll start here with the 2023 squad. The Blue Devils were 48-12 just a season ago, 19-5 in the ACC, swept the Durham Regional, and then fell to the Stanford Cardinal in the Supers. Marissa, talk to me a little bit about that squad and what you saw from that 2023 team.
Just super proud of that group. I think that they definitely exceeded expectations with the graduation of, so many of our starting seniors and our ace, Peyton St. George. Last year's team was really sort of an unknown to see how that young group would step up. And they were phenomenal. They loved to compete and were a lot of fun to watch. And just being able to see them get us back to a super regional was phenomenal. And they're really hungry this year to take this to the next step and become a World Series team.
Now, hired back in, been at Duke since 2018, so 5 full seasons with the 213 wins and 97 losses. In your tenure at Duke, Marissa, what has that been like, that journey for you, starting a program and then ultimately, like you just said, advancing to a super regional, very, very close to make it to the Women's College World Series? What's that journey been like for you as a head coach since 2018 at Duke?
It's been a wonderful journey. Obviously, starting a program at a place like Duke is a dream come true, but it also came with quite a bit of challenges. You jump right into a tough conference, and the academic requirements to recruit at a place like Duke can be challenging. So I'm just really proud of the commitment by all of the staff and our players to put this team at the top to a top 25 team in such a short period of time. That was our goal. And it's really great to see that come to fruition.
And this off season and this fall was tough for you and the family, with your husband James Lamar having multiple surgeries. And I know you took a leave of absence this off season. Number one, how is Lamar doing? And then talk a little bit about the staff and kind of what happened this fall and how you were able to step back and take care of your family.
Yeah, he is definitely still battling. He ended up having a major heart attack that went undetected and had to have a heart and kidney transplant after being on life support for several weeks. And that went really well. But, during the time he had a lot of blood loss to his limbs, he's lost his hands and his toes. So doctors right now are trying to reconstruct his feet so that he can hopefully walk again on his own feet. He's up to 23 surgeries now, still having them weekly. So he is definitely a trooper. And, we're very thankful for our softball family that have, supported us in so many ways, whether it be meals and prayers and just cards and things of that nature. And then also to my team and my staff. Obviously, my staff stepped up and really carried the load for us this fall so that I could be home to take care of him and help. But the team didn't skip a beat. I mean, they just showed so much resilience and really was touching to my heart for them to have that "we're going to play for you" attitude. And I've just appreciated being able to watch the growth of both my coaching staff and my players in my absence. And it's definitely helped me grow in a lot of ways. When you have to step back from something that you love, you definitely grow a different appreciation for the little things. And I'm glad to be back on a full-time basis, and definitely don't take anything for granted at this point.
And James is in our thoughts and prayers. So just
Thank
want you
you.
to know that. And I know that the softball family is behind you. So you are back full time and back at practice and
Mm.
get to be with the team. Let's talk a little bit about this 2024 squad and what you're seeing. Obviously, we saw Cassidy Curd, the left-hander, emerge on the scene as a rookie a season ago. You got Jayla Wright. You've got Walker and Garner McCallihan, and then a transfer from Pitt, Danny Drogemeyer.
Mueller. Yeah. Yeah.
Drogemuller. Oh, almost got it. Drogemuller. So let's talk a little bit about your pitching staff because from our perspective, you've got a little bit of an arsenal there at Duke heading into 2024.
Absolutely. We have always operated as a staff. Our kids really embrace that. Each one of them are so different, so they really, play off of each other well. And being able to add a pitcher like Danny with the experience, she was a workhorse at Pitt. Being able to add her with her experience to our staff is phenomenal. I feel like we have 3 or 4 aces that we can go to, and we have some pitchers that are really good in relief. Um, but having everybody back with more experience under their belt, they know what it takes to be a postseason team and what they need to do. All of them have continued to develop new tools in their bucket, which I'm really excited about.
So that's the pitching staff. And you spoke a little bit about this when we opened. Was a young squad last year and got a ton of experience. You lose just, I believe, Deja Davis out of that lineup, which Deja, I think, has stayed on with you as well and a part of the program. But when you look at your lineup up and down, you've got an Anna Gold, Diana Jennings, Amina Vega. What is that starting to shape up to look like for you on the defensive and offensive, the lineup for you?
Definitely consistency, and, I feel like there's not a break in our lineup, there's not pressure on just one particular player to perform, anybody up and down that lineup is gonna get it done. Coach Taylor has done a great job of developing each one of them to get a little bit better and minimize the holes in their zone. And defensively, that was another thing we really strived to get better at from last year, and she's done a phenomenal job improving our infield defense specifically. So I'm excited for this group.
And you open up in Mexico in Puerto Vallarta against Oklahoma. First game of the season. Now, this looks a little bit like last season because I was able to watch you all in a really tight matchup at the Mark Campbell Classic against the Sooners. Talk to me about that first weekend and scheduling and why opening up against Oklahoma seems to be the trend for you.
It is, you want to compete against the best of the best, and I think it's a great measuring stick for us to come out and even in the loss last year, our players still walked away with a lot of confidence and knowing, we didn't come out on top, but we can play with the best teams in the country. And obviously, there were some things that we needed to clean up as we progressed through the season, and we did that. So this year will be no different. We want to challenge them at the start, um, put them in high pressure situations, and we feel like that prepares them well for the postseason.
And that first weekend against Oklahoma, Iowa State, Nebraska with Jordy Ball, and then Long Beach State, the reigning Big West champions. When you're preparing for that first weekend, what does that look like for you at Duke and Duke softball when you're preparing for that Puerto Vallarta tournament? Because it also is an international trip as well. What goes behind that?
I feel like we do a really good job of preparing our players for our opponents, but at the beginning of the season, you spend most of your time focusing on you. We've got to play our game, but we also want them to be prepared for what they're going to see against each opponent. So we typically take one day of practice each day to focus on a different opponent and sort of get them prepared. But it is an exciting trip. For some of them, it's their first time traveling internationally, and just being able to be in that environment culturally and interact with people in that community is going to be a great experience outside of softball.
And it is an international trip, so I know that you probably had to check to make sure everyone has passports. Is that something that everybody is slated and ready to go?
We definitely started that process last year. Told them don't get left behind. Uh,
I love that. And you know a little bit about international ball because you yourself played internationally in Italy. I want you to talk a little bit about that experience because I feel like there are some people that don't really know about international softball, and you yourself were able to play in Italy. What was that like for you?
a great experience. Obviously, the opportunity to travel and see different parts of the world, but it also gave me a really deep appreciation for how important communication is in our game of softball. And not being able to speak the language of my teammates and communicate with them as much as I would like to was definitely a challenge. So that I think is a big thing. And we've got a lot of girls that are taking Spanish, and I've already challenged them when things get tough in Mexico, I'm coming to you with a go-to because I don't speak it as well as I should.
Oh, I love that. I think that piece and taking a squad to on international trips. Obviously, I'm probably a little bit biased because I love international softball, but I think that's going to be a really great experience. Now, are you doing any work with the local communities there in Puerto Vallarta? Is that something a part of the trip?
Yes, we get to put on a clinic for the local community there and, bring some gifts and items to give away, which will be really cool.
That's we'll make sure that we keep an eye on that. And when we talk a little bit about the recruiting process, because Softball America has a futures portion to our website, and you're really well versed not only as a coach in recruiting, but as a mom with a few in the pipeline. Uh, so let's talk a little bit about that. Like, one that's a Florida commit, and then I believe I heard that you were out at the UCLA game and maybe had a UCLA shirt on. There was a sighting that Marissa Young had a UCLA shirt on. So let's talk a little bit about that. And Jolena will be going to UCLA and Layla to Florida. What's that experience been like as a mother and a coach as well, recruiting your own children?
It's been a wonderful journey. I think it has definitely changed my perspective as a coach from recruiting, having to sit in that parent seat. I definitely have a different appreciation for the stress and pressure that families feel as they move through that recruiting process. So I've tried to be a little more cognizant of that as I'm, sitting in the coaching seat with them. But it's been great. Obviously, my oldest daughter, Layla, she was one of the last to commit as a sixth grader, and she had a really long journey and a lot of pressure. Really, like, would she live up to the hype and still be able to live out her dream? So I'm super proud of her to just see her fight through it. To get to live out her dream and play at Florida next year. And Jolena obviously got to take her on her official visit to UCLA. And, I've teased the girls, like, I don't buy anything from anywhere until you commit, and I will only wear your school shirt once you're committed for the photo. So they know that I am Duke through and through, but at the end of the day, I'm their mom. I love them, and I am going to be their biggest cheerleader.
And what was that experience like for you? You got to go on the trip to be actually a parent and go to the Rose Bowl and you know uh, see what it's like to be a parent and get recruited by another institution. What was that experience like for you?
I love it. You get the behind the scenes of other programs, and of course, I'm always have my coach's hat on of like, what can I learn? What can I steal? And I'm honest with them, like, oh, I like that, and I'm taking that from you. I told Kelly a few times. I was like, I like that. I'm gonna have to steal that. But Kelly and our staff, Kirk and Lisa, we go way back. UCLA was one of the schools that I was recruited by, and had I not gone to Michigan, that's probably where I would have ended up. So for me, it's kind of like a full circle moment. Now having my daughter re-recruited by that program, and such a successful place with so much history. I loved it. And the reality for me is I'm probably not going to get the opportunity to go to many of my girls' games because I'll be playing and coaching while they're playing. So yeah, it was a really special moment just to be able to sit as a mom with her that weekend on a recruiting trip.
Well, I'm sure they just appreciated you being there, and I know I talked to Natasha Watley. We're as former Bruin alum, we're excited to see what she does in that uniform. But I want to kind of stick with that in the recruiting piece because I think it's really important. When you're out recruiting and you're evaluating talent, I asked Trisha Ford this as well. What are you looking for when you're out at travel ball tournaments and have kids that come and come to camp on campus at Duke? What are kind of those key values that you're looking for, or key metrics that you're seeing in an athlete and recruiting them to become a Blue Devil?
Sure. Obviously, metrics are a huge part of the recruiting process now. And, the reality is we're all looking for the same thing on paper. But I think uniquely for us here at Duke, the academic piece is such a barrier for so many. And so, really getting a student athlete that embraces the tough academic rigor and can handle that as well as, you don't get a break in softball because you've got to study. So, somebody that's a high achiever and we really feel can handle the pressure of a high academic institution like Duke is really the key.
And what are those academic parameters? Because I think a lot of people ask questions about, okay, so what do my grades need to look like if I want to go to Duke, or what do my testing scores need to look like? Because I think that's really important, and that athletes and kids understand how important it is to do well on the academic side so that they can have the opportunity to play for an institution like Duke.
Right. And now that SAT and ACT are test optional, taking AP classes is really the key. It's really important. Obviously, we want your GPA to be as high as possible, but Duke does require AP classes and honor classes, which sometimes can be a hurdle.
And I know that's been a hurdle because I've spoken to people about it, but I think it's really important that parents and players understand that taking those honors and AP classes are prerequisite to get in. And I know that that kind of slips through the cracks, but again, parents and players can be educated and know that those AP classes are super important, especially for institutions like Duke. So moving along here, I want to kind of talk a little bit about the game as a whole, because I think, Marissa, you've got such a unique perspective, not only as a player, as a coach at various institutions at various levels, and then played professionally as well, internationally, and then for the Texas Thunder in the NPF. Uh, what are your thoughts on where our game is moving, and kind of where it started? Obviously, I gave a kind of a little snapshot of your career: UNC, Eastern Michigan, Concordia, um, starting at Michigan as a player. What do you see kind of the next big step for the sport of softball?
Well, I hope, with the deal with Major League Baseball coming a part of that and helping grow the game for us, we can get to a point where we have a pro league that women can do it full time. We are phenomenal. They're phenomenal athletes and very committed to being professional athletes. And I really hope we can get to the point where they are financially supported and that can be their full time career. But I think, just seeing the way that the game continues to grow collegiately, internationally, and then with NIL, women have incredible opportunities that weren't afforded to us when we played. So I'm just really excited to see those doors continue to open for them, and just give them the platform that they really can do whatever they want to do. And, having more visibility in the sport is definitely going to open more doors for them professionally outside of softball. Just, different avenues that, again, wouldn't have been afforded to us in the past. So we continue to encourage our players to take advantage of every opportunity, network, use your platform and see where it takes you.
And you're speaking about NIL. I know that Peyton St. George, former pitcher at Duke, was incredible in utilizing NIL, and I know has come back and to be a part of the program. What has Peyton St. George been like as a leader, and uh, uh, part of the women's sports network of just utilizing the NIL, and then coming back and being a part of the program?
Sure. I mean, she did such a great job with it for herself here at Duke. It led to her getting a job with Teamworks to be able to launch that platform. And, it's great to just see her be all over the country with different schools and helping others grow their brand. I think she's a tremendous resource for our players. They continue to reach out and pick her brain. During training camp this January, we had her do a Zoom with our entire pitching staff, and it's just I still remember her, the 17-year-old Peyton. It's great to see her, all grown up and living her professional life and being able to reflect on all of the valuable lessons she learned in her time here at Duke through success and failure, which I think she's really great at, being honest and vulnerable about her failures and how it's helped shape and mold her. And she's just a great mentor and resource to people to say, hey, these are the things I wish I would have known. Here's how I want to guide and support you to make your journey a little bit easier. And so that was really great for our players to be able to gain insight from her, being, she's removed from it, but now a professional player, and she's still having to figure out how to work and train and compete, and just really great perspective.
And I know culture is a big piece to the program at Duke. How are you able to shape that culture, and what does it look like? When you talk about Duke softball, how are you able to do that year in and year out? Because I believe culture is a huge part of that program. And where did that come from?
I think it stemmed from me playing at Michigan for Hutch. Being a Michigan woman really meant high standards, and that's something that I wanted to bring here to Duke. I wanted Duke softball players to be the best women on campus, not just here on the field, but how they carry themselves on campus and within the community. So we really set that foundation. And then I think, being a working mom is something that I, try to be very vulnerable and real with them about, helping use my own experiences and let them see the reality of it all, because they're going to be that one day. And so I think the family atmosphere, the being honest and vulnerable about when life gets hard, and how we want to show up for each other, um, is a big part of our culture.
And you spoke a little bit about Hutch and playing at Michigan. What do you think is the greatest lesson, or what you learned from being a player under Coach Carol Hutchins, winning as coach at Michigan? What did you take away from that?
Just that it wasn't about me. It was really about Michigan softball and doing what was best for the team and the program. And, of course, the competitor in you want to be the best at everything, and you're really super focused on yourself. But I learned that it wasn't about me, and I need to be the best teammate I can be. Um, and I think now as a coach, I'm willing to vacuum or sweep the sheds or the dugout, do whatever it takes, because I have that same approach. It's not about me, it's about doing what's best and what's needed for my program.
And obviously, that was being a part of the Big Ten, and now you're in the ACC with Duke. Can you explain how you've been a part of this conference and the rise of this conference? Can you explain when that shift kind of happened, or you believe that shift kind of happened? And you would argue it would be obviously when you took over Duke and were able to come in there and bring that program to life. But in your opinion, how are we seeing this rise of the ACC, which in the past you and I both know was basically just Florida State, and now it's a dogfight.
Yeah, I think, uh, athletic directors continuing to invest in our programs have enabled us to have the resources that we need to be more successful. Obviously, Lonnie, as you said, has led the way with Florida State being a powerhouse. And as they continue to go farther, it raises the play in the ACC. And, you know, I love the fact that we were able to come on and have success early, and then right behind us came Clemson, and it just forces everybody else to elevate their game. And um, now the ACC is a power conference that people want to come and compete and play in. So I think it has all happened really quickly, but it continues to raise the bar for facilities and resources needed and all of that to just keep elevating everyone's program.
And I know you got to get to practice in a little bit here, but so we'll wrap it up. But what are you most looking forward to heading into season? Because it is a grind. It's been a grind, and we're just weeks, days away from the start of the 2024 season. What are you most looking forward to?
I love traveling with our group. The time, the bus ride, sitting in the airport, the conversations we have, are something I really appreciate. And again, after being away from everyone this fall, that's what I missed most is not the softball, but the time in the relationships and connecting with them. I think it's also great. Like it's not as unknown as it will be last year with so many newcomers. Having a more experienced group back is refreshing. They're such player-led group, and our seniors are really excited to go out with a bang. So this year's is definitely about moving out of their way and letting them get after it.
And when you talk a little bit about your senior leadership or your leaders, who would you look to when we're talking about Duke softball? As doesn't have to be the most vocal. It just could be playing by example or lead by example. Who are your biggest leaders this season on the team?
Jada Baker, our shortstop, is definitely our lead by example. She is that kid that never takes a rep off in practice and is just, it's almost so automatic you take it for granted, but she is outstanding. And Giselle Tapia is our fifth year grad student first baseman. Just a great leader, shows up, gets after it, and does a good job of modeling the way for the younger players.
Well, I can't wait to see the squad heading into Mexico. First weekend in Puerto Vallarta, doing some community outreach, speaking Spanish. Well, you keep me updated on that. And best of luck this season. Marissa Young, head coach at Duke, thank you so much for joining me this week on the Softball America podcast. Any final thoughts from you about Duke softball, Marissa?
No, hopefully we'll see you guys in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I love that. We'll see you in OKC. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Tara. Appreciate